And your booklets, a couple of things about those before we get started. This is the advanced workshop as it states on the front of your booklet. There is a basic, don't worry, it doesn't matter which one you make first. However, we do make sure that you do your best to be here for both, because our idea is you need to get the best results in the shortest amount of time, and if you're undoing what we're doing here at home, does that make very much sense? Probably not, right? So the basic workshop, the date is there, and I believe it is November 7th on a Monday. It's at 7:15. Tonight's workshop is only about 4 hours long. Just kidding, I see you guys sweating already. I'm going to do my best to keep it to about 80 minutes because it is jam-packed of information. So, in an effort to get that to you, most people speak at about 100 to 125 words per minute. I have been known to get to 250, if gusts of 300 words per minute. If I go a little fast, just slow me down. The only thing I ask you not to do is fall asleep and snore very loudly. The other evening we had about 30 people here. It was a little warm, warmer than right now, and the husband was sitting here and the wife was right about where Carlos is, and the husband was snoring. And I looked at the wife, I said, he's doing... And I said, do you think you can interrupt him? He's kind of interrupting me. And you know what she said? She said, you wake him up, you put him to sleep. But no, I don't think she didn't say that, and I know we won't put you to sleep tonight. But a couple of things about the booklet. If you see this first page, you'll see a bunch of lines. And this is about action, folks. What is this about? Action, thank you. So I'm going to ask you to participate because that's the way I know you're alive and not sleeping. No, seriously. If we just come here and nothing changes in your life, it makes very little sense, right, for us to spend this 8 hours, I said 4 hours, I'm down to 80 minutes together. So whatever it is you're going to do differently or you're going to reinstitute in your life that you stop doing, whatever it is, at some point you want to write something down here. Not necessarily tonight, maybe it's tomorrow when you wake up and you realize, wow, what Dr. Simonetti said made sense in this area. And I'm not going to ask you to accept anything I say. I'm going to ask you to use your logical mind, compare it to what you know, research it. But I have to tell you, I've been studying this stuff for 35 years or more. And I have not just studied it, I've done it. So anything about diet we've covered, you know, they say practice what you preach. I preach what I practice. So I've tried it all. And I know from experience with working with people, not everybody is the same. So some things may really apply right on for you and some may not. We're all different. So, with that said, our agenda is, I am Stephen Simonetti, and again, if I had my hands around your neck, you better know that already. We're going to do the natural healing seminar. You could have refreshments whenever you want. I'll answer questions individually afterwards, or it could turn into 8 hours. So, if I could give you some information, and I'm going back to that, if I could give you some information that allowed you to live to 120 to 130 years of age, with abundant energy, not losing half of your kidney function and your heart function, not being dependent on 5 or more drugs. Do you know the average person over 65, guess how many drugs they take? 5. My mom is 97. She doesn't take any. That means somebody out there is taking how many? 10, right? To keep up the law of average. So if we could give you that information, would you want to know it?
Yes.
Would you be willing to take what? Action, right? See, so that's the thing. We have the information because there's cultures that live 120 to 130 years of age. And then there's our culture, which we're going to cover this way. Are we a healthy nation? And by the way, for those who did the basic here, I know Josephine and Robert, a little bit of this is review. After that, it's 90 minutes or 80 minutes of all new stuff. How would you answer that?
No.
No. Thank you, Josephine. I know there's one awake person here. We spent over $2 trillion. Well, I saw a lot of people doing this neck exercise too, though. We spent over $2 trillion on healthcare last year. This is actually a year old. It's about 2.3. More than any other nation in the world. We have more doctors, more hospitals, more technology than any other nation. We make and take more drugs. We are 5% of the world's population, consuming 60% of the world's drugs. 5% of the world's population, and some sources say 80, I just read that. So let's average it out. 70% of the world's drugs. But are we healthy? And say we doubled that, and we spent now 4.6 trillion, would we be any healthier? Well, if you aren't sure how to answer that, this is from Gerard Anderson from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. He states this country spends more resources than any other industrialized nation by a wide margin. We reviewed how much a moment ago. Yet between 90 and 95, the United States fell to a position 23 out of 29 industrialized nations in terms of infant mortality. We had more babies die within the first year of life, 23 out of 29 nations, and we were ranked 20 out of 29 in terms of life expectancy for women. Sorry guys, worse for us. 21st in terms of life expectancy for men. A more current stat, 2007, a few more industrialized nations, but we are still at the bottom of the ladder, 37 out of 39 nations. Now, the reason I bring this up is for simply one purpose. If you don't ask yourself why this is the way it is, where 2 out of 3 people are with cancer, 2 out of 3 people with heart disease, we will wind up being one of these statistics. That is the fact of the matter. So I've asked myself that question many, many times. Why is it we have more doctors, more hospitals, more technology, more health care, yet we are one of the sickest countries in the world? Why is it that many people my age are passing away that I know? See, I contend it's because we don't know what health is. I contend we've been sold the wrong understanding, the wrong bill of goods. And to illustrate that, I'm going to ask you all a question. What is health? To some degree or another, we are trained to believe that health is feeling good. That health is the absence of pain and symptoms. Now I have a question for you guys. How many people do we know who feel great? And then they're diagnosed with cancer. They feel great.
2 weeks later.
They have a heart attack. They go up to pick up an waste paper basket and they can't move. The fact is your heart, this is what research shows, will dysfunction for 3 to 5 years. Your heart will replace with abnormal muscle tissue, disease cells, while you're feeling great and have no symptoms. Most cancers take 10 to 12 years. So we have people in our own family, in our own sphere of influence, who are feeling no pain and symptoms. They're healthy, but yet their bodies are very sick inside. Now I will tell you this, and you'll understand why this is by the time we're done here this evening. I was at a chiropractic seminar, this was 2 months ago. I'm going again to the same seminar. I'm teaching there this weekend. And the doctor from the platform asked about 200 chiropractors, and this was a more seasoned group. Not that I'm one of them, yeah, but I'm one of them. I would say maybe 15, 20 years in practice. And this is what they asked, or she asked. How many doctors here have had somebody in their office, one of your patients, die of heart disease? And nobody raised their hand. She said, how many people here had somebody diagnosed with cancer? One person. And she asked, how many? The one doctor said, one person. Now, I will tell you, there's a good reason for that. And it's not because they ate differently, because they followed the 5-step exercise program. Those things are important. But we're going to review exactly the most important thing that keeps your body healing and working at 100%. But again, it has nothing to do with how you feel. Why do we believe that if you have no symptoms, you're healthy? Well, have you heard for the fast temporary relief, if you have a headache in the evening, you take what? Excedrin PM. You're old enough, you have Tylenol for who? For juniors. How do you spell relief? Everybody remember that one? R-O-L-A-I-D-S. See, why is it we know all those jingles? Because of $17 trillion a year spent by the pharmaceutical industry. And what do they spend it on? Research and development? Hardly. On what? On advertising. 2 out of 3 commercials. Every other ad in the magazine article is about a drug. And it is not the drug that's the problem, because drugs save lives. If you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, thank God we have insulin.
Side effects.
But it's the side effects, which, by the way, now they have drugs for the side effect of the drug you're taking. I saw the first one advertised. I was like, you're kidding me. But the fact of the matter is, it's the understanding that I could take something, get rid of my pain, feel good, and think I'm healthy. And let me tell you right now, vitamins and homeopathic remedies, they're all in, and they're less toxic than what it does, the side effects of these drugs. But they match the same belief system, which is I could take something, a pill, a potion, a lotion, rather than pay the price of proper lifestyle choices, rather than pay the price of doing what we're going to talk about this evening, which is living a healthy life. So, people, the absence of pain certainly doesn't mean you're healthy. It's kind of like waiting for your car to blow black smoke, right? And then deciding, well, I'm going to change. I just had my oil changed. You know, I got the mobile, and I'm thinking I can go 4,000, but I do it every 28. Well, actually, I could go 6 or 7, but I do it about 4,000 because I'm really into maintaining that. But we haven't been trained to maintain our bodies the same way. Now, the opposite end of this you got to get to. Does the presence of symptoms mean you're sick? Well, let me give you some examples. We go to Golden Hawaii. I'm showing my age. It used to be a restaurant here in Whitestone. About Josephine, you're showing your age by waving your head yes. About 30-something years ago in the Whitestone Shopping Center. I liked it because they had those umbrella drinks. I mean, could you imagine? I remember that. But we ordered the lo mein, but instead of the lo mein, we get the ptomaine. Everybody know ptomaine? That's food poisoning. So I want to get to the phone to thank you for inviting me out to this wonderful meal, but I can't get to the phone because my stomach is starting to ache. My muscles are starting to contract. I'm feeling a little feverish. Then I'm running to the bathroom because something wants to come up. Before it comes up, something wants to go out the other end, and I don't want to get graphic here, but I'm driving the porcelain bus. Everyone knows the porcelain bus? That's the toilet. Now you, on the other hand, I try to get to the phone, but you couldn't get to the phone, and hopefully you passed on to an existence better than this one. Now my point is, who's sick and who's well here, and what are those symptoms doing? What are they doing?
They're getting rid of all the poison.
They're getting rid of the poison. In fact, when we get a fever, and think about this, I have 3 kids, I always make that mistake, 3 kids, and we've maybe had 6 or 8 fevers to deal with. And they would spike 12 hours, maybe 24 maximum, and be over. Why? Because we recognize the purpose of a fever. Virus and bacteria don't like heat. So we have an infinite wisdom in our body. It knows how to raise its temperature, usually not for too long, then drop it if it needs to, and then raise it to burn this stuff out of our system. Now we've been trained to what? Put more credence in a little pill or I thought bear aspirins, how could they be bad? They were made by little bears when I was growing up. But the fact of the matter is, the body has this infinite wisdom. It knows when to raise its temperature. It knows when to lower it. And there may be a time where a cool bath or a medication is needed, but when the body is functioning and you let the body do what it's supposed to do, it may take 12 or 24 hours where if you let me ask you this way, are you aiding or are you interfering with the body's natural process? And then are you prolonging what the body is trying to do? We get in, when we get congested, your body's purpose for producing mucus is to get rid of toxins. We've been trained to blow something up to dry out what the body has produced to heal ourselves. So we have to look at the role of symptoms differently. The lack of symptoms certainly doesn't mean you're healthy, and the presence of symptoms doesn't mean you're sick, and they're not the enemy. And by the way, folks, if you get rid of your symptoms, where is the cause going of those symptoms? Is it going away? Or are you just masking it and making the problem worse? Because your body, again, tells you, it gives you warning signs. It says, don't sit this way. Don't eat this food. Don't have a lack of exercise. So, we talked a lot about what health is not. We need to switch gears here a little bit and talk about 100% abundant health so you can live to 120 to 130 years of age. And 100% health is 100%, and I mentioned it It starts with an F. I got you guys scared. It's not the word my son is learning in school as we speak. It's 100% function. You'll notice sick people get everything because they never improve function. They just change and treat their symptoms. So, when you break the body down to its smallest element, what do you have, folks? A bunch of what?
Cells.
Cells. So cells create tissues, and tissues create organs. So your liver, for example, every 6 weeks is replaced with all new cells. Your stomach lining every 3 to 5 days, your heart every 3 to 4 months. Within 1 to 2 years, we are in the process of creating healthy systems, your circulatory, your respiratory system, your endocrine system, which work in harmony to create a healthy body. So folks, we are either in that process, or our bodies are in the process of repairing, or it doesn't repair, and this is the kicker, of replacing with abnormal disease cells. So the body doesn't fix these things. It's either in this process, or it's creating abnormal tissue, abnormal organ. I know no one can read that but me, but don't worry about it. We're creating disease, and as we said, how many years for the heart? 3 to 5 years. Replacing abnormal disease cells, cancer, 10 to 12 before the symptoms start. And this is how crazy our system is. We're motivated and taught how to get rid of your symptoms, pills, potions, lotions, surgery, or even an adjustment, but not undo what process we're in. So it's all about staying in this process, and that's what we're going to cover. But first we have a little bit of review. Believe it or not, we are going to have you open those booklets. I know Rita was really stern. I was afraid when she said don't open those booklets. But go to the first page, which I think says page 6 on the top. Don't let that throw you. Please fill in the blanks. Use our 33-year anniversary pens, I think. They're up to 33. Those are for you to keep. And it states this: health is not the absence of what? Pain or symptoms. In fact, pain or symptoms are the last 2 warning signals to occur with most disease processes. Research indicates it takes how many years for heart disease?
3 to 5.
3 to 5. And how many for cancer? Degenerative? 10 to 12. And 100% health is achieved by 100%, what's the magic F word? Function of your body. And in order to have a healthy body, my body must have healthy what?
Cells.
Cells. In fact, the quality of my life is the quality of my cells. So this is Dorland's Medical Dictionary definition, which is also the World Health Organization definition. We're going to spend a minute on this because it's kind of important. And it states this: health is a state of optimal or 100% physical, and I'll try not to go too fast, as I mentioned, I can do that. Emotional, and don't write this yet, they say social, but I have a literary license because I'm speaking. I say spiritual, and we'll give, so optimal physical, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being. And we'll get to the second half of that definition, which is very interesting in a second. But the reason we're going to spend a moment on this is because health is a balance, just like everything in life is a balance, right? The chair you're sitting on is balancing on 4 legs. If one of those legs is weak, what does it do to the other 3 legs? Put stress on them, right? More demand on them. In the same way, if we are in great physical shape, but we come home and we have no love in our lives, can we be healthy? Not truly healthy, no. Or we could be a great lover, but if we have crisis and we have no spiritual underpinnings and we don't see a purpose for this, or there's something greater than what I can deal with to get us through it, we may never get through it. So this may be your first homework assignment, because it's easy to work what we're good at. But sometimes we need to work on one of these more. And spiritual might be not going to a mosque or a church or a synagogue, but it might be just being in nature. You know, when you walk in nature, your blood pressure goes down. Known fact. Or it might mean meditating. Or it might mean doing more physical stuff, because for some that's a spiritual release. But again, what are we not working on? And be honest with ourselves. And this is the interesting part of this, not merely the absence of disease and infirmities, which is what our whole medical system focuses on. treating disease. In fact, if you go to your doctor and you say, listen, I'm a little, well, first of all, if you say, listen, I'm feeling good, I just want to live to 120 to 130 years of age, what is he going to tell you?
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Thank you. And if, by the way, you're short-winded and you're groggy, and they say, oh, you may have clogging of your arteries, and they find you're 20% clogged, you know what they're going to tell you? Go home. When you're 40% clogged, come back, and then we'll do a roto-rooter surgery, which is proven not to do any good. But they do it anyway. So, and doctors are doing the best with what they have. I have medical doctors who refer folks here who are under care, who are friends. It's their training, folks. They're just trained by a system that does not work. Simply does not work. Now, Webster's dictionary definition, health is a condition of wholeness in which all of the organs, tissues, and cells, the magic F word, functioning 100% of the time. All right, folks. Everybody ready? Say yes or yes.
Yes.
Because now we really start. That was our intro. So, our cells here, to be in this process, and to be out of this process most of the time, need four things. In a rich, abundant supply. Real basic. What do you think the cells
Water,
need?
air,
Water is number 2.
air.
Oxygen is number 1.
Calories.
Hormones and energy, specifically nerve energy. And you need to get toxins out. So this is real simple, folks. You give the body a rich supply of these four things, you get toxins in, you don't overload with too many toxins back in the system. We can adapt to our internal and external environment, and we stay healthy. And that's what health is, adapting to your internal and your external environment. And it is not the bug, folks. Why is it you could put 4 kids, say, in a room with somebody with the flu, and 2 get the flu and 2 don't?
Immune system.
It's the immune system. It's the host. It's how strong your body is. And by the way, it's not genetics either. And I got to cover this briefly, because this is the other thing that the medical profession has gotten us thinking in the wrong way. When they did the Genome Project and they studied with trillions of dollars DNA, guess how many chromosomes they found a human being has? About 35 to 40,000 chromosomes. What do you think an earthworm has? About 25. We're about 10,000 chromosomes better than an earthworm. But what they found, the DNA, the genes, have something surrounding them called epigenes. And now all the research is in epigenes. Epigenes are receptors that are stimulated to make the genes active. So you're only as good as your epigenes, or as much as they're stimulated, because they're really not genes per se. And guess what stimulates the epigenes? It is how you think, how you move, how you eat, and how well your nerve system is functioning. It's your lifestyle choices. So this is the point. Health is 80% your lifestyle, 20% your genetics. It is not because my father had heart disease, I'm having heart disease. Because it's more what I choose to do on a daily basis that gives the cells the oxygen, the water, the hormones, and the nerve energy to stay in this process. So this is the crucial thing. What process do you want to be in? You don't want to be in this process for any amount of time. And this is how we stay in the process. We give the cells and we're going to turn the page so you already know it. A healthy body, by the way, we're on the next page, equals healthy what? Cells. And the 4 essential ingredients for your body to be full of life and vitality are oxygen, water, hormones, and nerve energy. Now, if you think the person in front of you and back of you, beside you, was so smart, they might have been reading the next line. No, I'm just kidding. To give my body, cells, tissues, and organs a rich supply of oxygen, water, hormones, and nerve energy, I must practice the following 4 lifestyle choices. And we just reviewed what they are. Anybody remember?
Eat well.
Eat well, but don't write that yet. because for some people eating well is McDonald's and Twinkies. For some it's tofu and broccoli.
Exercise.
Well, don't get there yet, because for some people they're exercising in the gym, they're physically fit, but are they healthy inside? I had a personal trainer, 18 months of training. Can you tell I have one muscle right there after that? The point is, eating right means, and write this one in please, consuming living waters and living foods. And you'll understand this, I guarantee you, by the time you leave here. Consuming living waters and living foods. And Josephine, rather than exercise, we want to write this. Proper aerobic training. And there are three types of exercise, and we're going to cover them very briefly, but we're going to spend a lot of time on, not a lot, but more time on proper aerobic training. What does aerobic mean? With what? Oxygen. What do the cells need? Oxygen. Positive mental attitude. Your mind and body cannot be separated. Somebody came in the office the other day and they said, "Doc, you're always so positive, so upbeat. Stop it, it's depressing." Just kidding. Number 4 is structural support. Structural support. You ever see anybody, folks, walk around like this all day? Could they be healthy? I can't even do it for 2 seconds. Structure determines function, and we're going to go through that in great detail. So, this is your homework assignment. You're going to rate yourself. Right now, you're not sure exactly how to do it. On a scale of 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how do you rate yourself on the 4 crucial lifestyle choices of consuming living waters and living foods, on proper aerobic training, on positive mental attitude, and on structural support? So I'll leave that up until everybody gets it in, because I know I'm going a little quickly. Don't worry, I worked out today. I ate some good food already. I got adjusted. I read some good stuff this morning, so I'm not in a rush to do any of these things. Got them all in today. And I'm going to go home and be with my lovely wife. So there's my social part of it. So, folks, now we get to the meat and potatoes. Everybody ready? Say yes or yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. We are, and I'll put that back up there for a second, just in case you're still going. We are 70 to 80% what? Water. Planet Earth is 70 to 80% what? Water. We are microcosms of planet Earth. Does drinking 8 glasses of water a day make sense? Don't say yes. Think about this. They research 100, well, it's different for you, because I'm different than you. John's different than you. In fact, we all have different voice frequencies, different fingerprints. When they research 100 or 1,000 people at best, that works well in a test tube. It's the same reason why 500 international units of penicillin doesn't make sense, or 500 milligrams of vitamin C doesn't make sense. Because for me it might be perfect, Robert away made too much, and Josephine spit in the bucket. The fact is, you drink when you're thirsty. And hopefully you drink a lot of water. Now, where I grew up in Flushing, the water is pretty good. Where I live on Long Island, I didn't want to bathe in it when we raised our children, never mind drink it. So I suggest even here to get a filtered, and the best is an alkalized filter, but you should definitely filter your water, without doubt. Fluoride, it doesn't take that out, and that's another atrocity. Which, just an aside, get unfluoride toothpaste. Tom's has one. Fluoride, there's nothing, it's a toxic chemical. There is no doubt. It's a hoax, and it's just not good for us. But again, great to drink water in the morning, because you're generally getting rid of toxins. So it's a great thing to have a couple of glasses of water in the morning. Now, by the way, one of the most common signs of being dehydrated, and by the way, is fatigue. If you're tired all the time, it simply might be you're dehydrated, because there's a very delicate balance between the amount of water you have and how you get rid of toxins as well. So if you don't have enough water, your body will get rid of toxins through your skin, with skin conditions, with breathing problems, with bowel problems. So water is crucial. Well, I drink a lot of soda. Well, any Coca-Cola beverage, according to the FDA, is registered as a food. Anybody have any idea why? 7 2/3 tablespoons of sugar, and they put caffeine up. You'd spit it out. It'd be so sweet. And I always get, well, I drink diet soda. Well, diet soda used to have what in it?
Aspartame.
No, that's what it has
Saccharin.
now. It used to have saccharin until they found out it caused what? Cancer. Now it has aspartame or NutraSweet, any diet product, not just the Coca-Cola beverage. And according to the FDA, anything with NutraSweet or aspartame will have an expiration date or already does. Do you know why?
Fractose.
Well, it breaks down to something. What do you think it breaks down to?
Sugar.
Well, formaldehyde. That's embalming fluid. I don't want to be that well preserved, thank you very much. Don't spit out the sugarless gum you're chewing, please. Store-bought juices are heated up, which kills most of the nutrients. They're pasteurized. And any juice is laden with sugar. The worst is orange juice. Folks, you're best off drinking water. Now, when do you drink water? Before the meal, after the meal, or during the meal? Probably we haven't been trained to really know about that, but think of it. At the sight of food, you produce some enzymes to break down the food. You smell the food, you produce some more enzymes. You ingest it, now you have some enzymes tiling in your mouth, and you're breaking this down. Now, if you drink with the meal, does it make those enzymes stronger or weaker?
Weaker.
Weaker, it dilutes them. So why would you burn out your pancreas, your nerve energy to produce these vitamins in your pancreas? So if I go out and I have a carrot juice or a beer, and I believe in moderation, but it's usually the carrot juice, first of all, I'll drink my water first, and then I'll drink my whatever I'm going to drink, and then I won't drink till 2 or 3 hours after I've eaten, because I want to use my digestive enzymes efficiently. Now, if you're not eating right, don't stop drinking with the meal. Why? Because we need the water to get rid of toxins, etc. But eating right means this. We are 70 to 80% what? Water. Guess what God put on this planet? Foods that have 70 to 80% water in them. Isn't that pretty ironic? What are the 2 basic sources of water-enriched foods? Fruits and vegetables. Now, I mentioned earlier, I preach what I practice. I've tried and read every diet book, and they change consistently, all nutritional theory, but every single one is consistent on 2 things except the Atkins, which is a high-protein diet, and the early part of South Beach diet. But every single one is consistent on what? Fruits and vegetables. Now, certain diets now say you should eat 50% more vegetables than fruits because of the blood sugar. Certain diets say you should eat 50% raw. Other things say when you cook tomatoes, for example, propylene, I think is the name of the compound, is good for your prostate if you have one, and good for other things. So sometimes cooking activates certain things. But it is a good idea. If you think in nature, we probably were eating some raw things, right? But again, we're going to do some review, and then we have some more concepts. But by the way, when we go out for dinner, folks, what do we get? We get the meat, the potatoes, the rice, the bread. Don't forget the dessert. And over in the corner, overcooked, overseasoned, dead vegetable. Living water, living food diet. The more you cook it, the nutrients stay in the pot and the water goes up in the smoke. Leave a cover on it. You will cook it less if you cover what you're cooking. You could take it off to boil the water off, especially if you're making broccoli rabe. That's my mother's recipe. You don't want to ruin that. But the point is, lightly cooked. Now, our bodies, some review. We're on to page 9. Everybody with me? Say yes or yes? Yes. Our bodies are composed of 70 to 80% what? Water. It therefore makes logical sense to eat 70-80% what kind of rich foods? Water. And the 2 basic sources are what?
Fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables. A typical American diet, folks, consisting of only 15% water-enriched foods is suicide. We must get every meal, 2/3 of what's on your plate should be fruits and vegetables. That's the way to look at it. And if you want to balance it out throughout the day, that's pretty okay. But, and by the way, if you're eating a lot of, well, we'll get to red meat in a minute, and I'll remind you. So another homework assignment. Write down everything that's passed your lips in the past 24 hours. What percentage of your diet is made up of water-enriched foods? Coffee is not a water-enriched food. And lastly, drinking any fluid with the meal, what does it do to your enzymes? Dilutes or weakens them, making it more difficult to break down and digest my food. So folks, I'll go back to that if you didn't get that, but everybody's turning their page, so I think we're okay. You are what you eat, what you digest, and what you absorb. So it does not matter what you eat unless you digest, assimilate it, and use it. And that's why, as we get to this, you'll see how this unfolds. Your nerve system is at the hub of this wheel of health. But if you're not getting energy to your digestive organs, you're not digesting your food properly or assimilating it. If you're not getting your nerve system proper blood flow and muscle activity, your exercise is not doing what it should do. And your mind gets congestion of mental impulse, something we'll go over in a minute. And this is why this is important. This is why people can eat a healthy diet, but not get the use of what they're eating. You also have to get the best use of what you're eating, exercise, to produce digestive enzymes. So it's not just eating, it's what you digest and what you absorb. Now, the 5 poisons of what to eliminate or reduce dramatically. Number 1, dairy products, milk, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream. Now this sounds sacrilegious, and I see some of you moaning already. Who subsidizes the dairy industry? The federal government. Big money. Got milk, all their advertising, and all of that stuff. Well, first of all, I'll give you the hygiene reasons, natural hygiene, why it doesn't make sense, and the chemical reasons to digest or to take in dairy. But remember we said we're 5% of the world's population consuming 60 to 80, we'll call it 70% of the world's drugs. 40 of that 70% is antibiotics given to the livestock of the milk we drink and the meat we eat. Horrible. And we'll talk a little bit more about what they do to meat in a minute, but I don't want anybody losing their dinner right now. But while we're on dairy, when I read this, I realized there's no good reason to have dairy consumption. We are the only species on planet Earth, the only mammal, not to be weaned. Every other mammal stops drinking milk once it achieves 3 times its birth weight. For a human being, that's about 1 year of life. We drink milk and eat cheese for how long? Forever. We are also the only mammal on planet Earth to drink milk from another species. A goat drinks goat's milk, a cow drinks cow's milk, we'll drink any milk we could get our lips on. So, if we're supposed to be weaned and we're supposed to only drink our own milk, it seems to make sense to be breastfed for how long? For 1 year. And really, they introduce solids way, way too soon, which causes digestive issues and so many other things. So, what do we believe we're getting from dairy?
D vitamin.
D vitamin, what else?
Strong bones.
Strong bones, calcium. Now let me tell you something. Wrong-o. Chemical reason, the calcium is wrapped up in casein, which is a substance they use to make glue. It also binds with phosphorus. Dairy has a high phosphorus content. This is why you don't drink a lot of carbonated beverages, because they have phosphoric acid. What does that do? It takes the calcium out of your bones, out of your joints, out of your nerves. So it's very hard to get to that calcium. And if you're not sure of this, come into my dungeon. Don't worry, nobody's hanging up upside down in the back. It's behind that back wall, and I have a row of x-rays, 3 levels, and we could bring out any films of anybody like 16 years old, and I will tell you this, a good part of them, we will see some bone loss. And we'll ask them their diet, and you will find out meat, dairy, yes, and then we'll see mom, who's got more bone loss, same diet. We're not getting calcium from this source. You may want to know good sources of calcium, so you may want to write these down, please. Green leafy vegetables. Collard greens are number 1. Kale is probably the best food on the planet. It has 12 to 14 times the phytonutrients of broccoli, and broccoli has a lot of good stuff in it. But kale is one of the best. Any green leafy vegetable, a raw handful of nuts, almonds about the best. And by the way, almond milk, you can make your own or they sell it, but you got to watch out, it has sugar in it. The best one I've seen is Pacific. It's called Pacific, and they actually have it in these stores. Key Food has one of them, and the Korean markets. Salmon, the fish salmon has some calcium. Strawberries have some calcium. But any nut, by the way, you need to refrigerate your nuts, especially walnuts, or they'll go rancid. Walnuts has a lot of great fats, which we're going to get to in a minute. But again, I'm going somewhere with this, and I just had it, and it's going to come right back. I know with that said, some of us are going to have milk, right? Especially in the coffee. By the way, in the cereal is one of the worst combinations of food you could eat. Cereal and milk is it's a protein and a starch that don't combine well. It leads to digestive disorders. It's not a good food to eat. But if we're going to have milk, the best probably is coconut milk. And you got to read ingredients to make sure it doesn't have, some of them have soy lecithin, some of them have sugar. Almond milk, as I mentioned. If you're going to drink regular milk, whole milk, not 2%, not no fat. When they take the fat out, all that is marketing so they could sell more milk. When they take the fat out, now you don't digest it fully because it goes through your system and the protein doesn't get digested and broken down to small amino acids. They pass through into your intestines, into your blood, and then you have allergies. So if you're going to have milk, have whole organic milk, but your best bet is not to have any milk. Or almond milk, grind your own if you want to go crazy. But again, they are linking dairy products with juvenile diabetes. If you have allergies, one of the first things you need to eliminate is dairy, ear infections. So especially kids, they don't need any of this stuff. Now, the next thing to eliminate is excessive fats and oils. The FDA has finally gotten smart here, because there are good fats, and then they are the ones most of us get in the things we like to eat. And by the way, if it tastes good, general rule, it's not good for you. And the reason is because it's got fats and sugars, is what makes it taste good. And this is the story. Now the FDA said you have to list the total grams of fats, I know we've all seen this, and the total amount of saturated fats. So saturated are man-made, or they're called hydrogenated fats. They put an extra hydrogen, which your body doesn't know what to do with that extra bond of hydrogen. So if it says, and you got to have the candy bar or you know whatever, ice cream, by the way, they have coconut milk ice cream. But if it says 10 grams of fat and 8 grams is saturated, that's not a great fat. And again, hydrogenated oils are canola oil, sunflower oil. Canola oil is one of the more popular and one of the worst oils. The good oils, olive oil, and again we're going to talk about what you cook and what you eat with, but coconut oil, virgin, raw coconut oil is the best oil. And if you're going to cook with it, it changes the flavor. But you can cook with regular olive oil, not extra virgin. And the reasoning behind this, oils break down at temperatures. Coconut oil breaks down the least, and they're carcinogenic, they're cancer-causing. So when we do a salad dressing, you want to have extra virgin. But if you're going to cook, regular olive oil. Or grapeseed oil is another good oil. Now, in fact, some oils have omega oils. And there are different kinds of omega oils, and you really need to have the right balance of the kinds of omega oils. But omega oils are good for our skin. They stop aging. They are essential for nerve transmission. So where do you find good omega oils? Fish. What's the best fish? Salmon. wild, because if you're not eating wild, I don't even want to tell you the atrocities of that, because you will lose your dinner over it. It's horrible. You're better off not having it if you're not having, forget fish in a can, that's not even food. Like tuna fish, that's not food. Salmon has a lot of omega oils. As we mentioned, walnuts have a lot of omega oils. Avocado has some really good omega oils. But you have to be careful with fish because some of them have a high mercury content. And by the way, mackerel has a lot of omega oils. There's a couple more, they'll come to me in a minute. Sardines have a lot of omega oils. But the big fish have also a lot of mercury. So like tuna, I have about every 2 to 3 months. I have it raw, I cook it black and blue, that's the best way to have it. If it's sushi grade good tuna, has a high mercury content, as does swordfish. So you kind of want to avoid those. But most fish is very good in having fats and oils. Now we're going to talk more about proteins in a minute. But the other thing we want to reduce or eliminate is animal flesh or meat. Now, meat grazes on what?
Right.
You say grass, I say pesticides. But it doesn't even eat grass, it eats corn. They put corn in everything. Gasoline, right? Horrible. Corn, who else feeds on corn? Chickens, right? But now, feeds on pesticides, then it's shot up with what? To make it big and plump, and antibiotics. And then meat is aged. What gives meat its taste is the aging process. What ages? Lactic acid, urine. I don't want to say that again. Well, you say, well, I eat chicken. Well, chicken grazes on what? Corn. What else? Pesticides. Some chickens now don't have wings because they're grown so close together in a chicken coop that they don't need them genetically. And by the way, the chickens that are advertised antibiotic-free, they all have to be antibiotic-free. They did improve that, finally. All chickens are antibiotic. So Purdue, I think, whoever advertises it, they're all antibiotic-free. Some solutions. Trader Joe's, I just was there earlier today, has grass-fed beef. There's a place in College Point that has grass-fed stuff. There is available grass-fed, but this is the trick with grass-fed. And I just learned this. If it's not finished grass-fed, it could be fed anything the last 30 days. But at least most of its life, it ate some good things. And then they say some grass-fed, they could give it grass pellets, and it doesn't have to range. So it's got to be arranging, because that's how it gets its nutrients, through feeding the grass as it gets exercise, as it moves around. Some solutions. Key Food has Murray's, has Bell and Evans chicken. There's another one, Nature Way, that is free range organic. So if you're going to eat that stuff, eat less, but make sure it's organic, free range, and less of it. Now, acidic foods, and we might as well cover this here, good sources of protein. And then we'll get to acidic foods. Oop, I'm going the wrong way. Good sources of protein to replace this. Quinoa is one of the best. Quinoa is like a grain, but it's really not a grain. And it's not gluten, but quinoa is a great source of protein. Beans, legumes, lentils are a really good source. Now some vegetables, the high vegetables are asparagus, cauliflower has a lot of protein. Asparagus, cauliflower. There's another one, if I remember I'll come up with it. But again, eat less animal flesh. An egg is one of the perfect foods. It has a lot of great proteins. Organic, free range. So I go crazy because, it can be expensive to eat organic. But there's certain things I must have organic. But I won't do all organic. Like eggs need to be free range or organic. And again, these Korean markets, Strawberry Fields, and there's another one, Raspberry Fields, they're about $3.99 a dozen. Now, maybe a regular, and by the way, a Murray's chicken might be about 12, where a regular chicken is about 8 or 9. a little more expensive, but we're worth it. Because guess what? Sooner or later, we're going to pay for eating wrong or right.
And it tastes
Right?
better.
And it tastes better. It tastes totally different. So avoid acidic foods. What are acidic foods? Frozen canned stuff. Robs your body of oxygen and water. Acidic foods. This one's tough, folks. Wheat, pasta, and white flour. So let me just mention this. There's a great book. It's called Wheat Belly, written by a cardiologist. And his theory, and it's kind of been proven, is we're not an obese nation where 70% of people are 20 to 30 pounds overweight, 70%, because of McDonald's and soft drinks. They're not great for us, but it's wheat. If you eat and this is the nerve of our system, heart healthy, whole wheat bread, or a Snickers bar, what makes your glycemic index? Your glycemic index is how much insulin you got to produce. And if we produce too much insulin, it gets stored as fat. What causes, I know I framed the question so you already know. It's the piece of whole wheat bread. So there are no good grains. This is a simple, I shouldn't say that. There's almond flour grains, there's quinoa flour grains, but there is no pasta, there's no cereal, there is no wheat. It is all genetically modified. It all has 46 chromosomes rather than 23. It's just not around. So we need to really cut down on that dramatically. So, now that I depressed everybody because we can't eat anything, this is how you judge how you've been eating. The next time you go shopping, time yourself. Or see what you check out with at the checkout counter. If 70 to 80% is coming from the first two aisles of the supermarket, what's in the first two aisles?
Vegetables.
Produce, right? Then we're eating pretty well. If 70 to 80% of what we're bringing out is from the other 32 shelves with stuff that lives on the shelf for 45 years because bacteria won't even eat it, it's not a living water, living food diet. The only fruit that should ripen on your counter is a banana. Because the more ripe it is when you buy it, the more nutrients it has, the more it's been on the vine and the dirt, etc. So bananas and oranges, by the way, are your highest glycemic index fruits. So they have a lot of sugar. We can eat them, but not excessively. Have a scrubbing brush on your windowsill to wash your vegetables and change it often. Not just rinsing them, wash them. If you're going to juice, buy organic. Because if you're going to juice stuff, you're going to get a high concentration of pesticides. So we're going to move on, and we'll be here way too long. Oops, I just hit the wrong thing. There you go. Now I'm going the right way. Now, the next concept, does anybody remember what it was? Proper aerobic training with oxygen training. Basic law of physiology. Turn your page, folks. We only got about 1,800 pages more to go. Just kidding. Basic law of physiology. If you don't use it, you lose it. When you put a specific body part into motion, M-O-T-I-O-N, the body responds by sending more blood and nutrients to that area. So basically, when you're active and busy, we give our cells something they will never get any other way. And there are 3 types of exercise. We're going to go through a 5-step exercise program in a second. The other 2 are important. They're flexibility and strengthening. And our program includes flexibility. Strengthening is important. The older we get, we lose muscle mass. And muscles burns quicker. It has a higher metabolism. So as we lose muscle mass, we tend to gain even more weight because our metabolism slows down. It also shores up joints. Now, you don't have to weight lift. Pilates, yoga, some aerobic exercise gives us some strengthening. But it's good to do some upper body stuff as well. But we're going to not cover that because this is more crucial. Specific benefits of aerobic training. Your heart operates more efficiently. It will rust out long before it wears out. Your blood vessels become enlarged, making them more pliable and reducing the resistance to blood flow. Your blood volume, the amount of blood you have, increases, especially red blood cells and hemoglobin. What do red blood cells and hemoglobin carry to the cells? Oxygen. It helps you eat better, digest better. It will even eliminate waste better. You go to the bathroom better. This is, by the way, one of the reasons exercise reduces a lot of forms of cancer, because you don't hold on to your toxins in your system. I feel like David Letterman, the number one reason I exercise, it increases your energy level. This is not a rare tropical disease I have. I was up at 7 a.m. doing a spin class and nobody could keep up with me, including the instructor. It helps you look better. You should have seen what I looked like before I exercised. I got awful, even more ugly. It may even make you feel better mentally and emotionally. It reduces the bad cholesterol, increases the good cholesterol. It reduces heart disease, obesity, as we said, many forms of cancer. It reduces the stress hormone, cortisol. Exercise does so many things. Now, this is the program we're going to recommend. Consists of a 5 to 10 minute warm-up. Warming up is I'm getting my heart moving. Even when we give you low back exercises or neck stretches, this is a great warm-up to do in the morning. It's called bang the gong. Just get your heart pumping so that you're getting blood and nutrients. What does a cat do the first thing it does? Wakes up before you stretch. So there are yogis who believe you're as old as your spine who live 120 to 130 years of age. Keeping yourself flexible is crucial. Then you do your aerobic training at your optimum heart rate for 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to review what that is in a minute. Conclude with a 5 to 10 minute cool down. And then stretch. By the way, you never stretch cold. I see kids, they get on the ball field and they just start running, or they sometimes don't even stretch. You must stretch, you must warm up first, or you will become inflexible and you will pull muscles that way. So you have to warm up, you have to cool down, and then you have another episode of stretching here. So, what is your ideal heart rate? Well, your ideal heart rate, first of all, does three things. And there is one other better way to do this, and we're going to cover that in a minute. It maximizes oxygen, maximizes water, and it burns fat. So if you want to burn fat optimally, we have to do aerobic training. And we're going to review one other type in a minute that burns a little bit more fat. But what is your ideal heart rate? 180 minus your age. You could type 220 minus your age times 70%, but this will put you on the map. So if you're 30 like me, 150 minus 30, I feel like I am, 1 is 150. And I got to keep that heart rate pretty consistent. You can count your pulse for 15 seconds multiplied by 4. There's plenty of heart monitors, Polar, Exercise Boutique, like Models and stores like that carry them, relatively inexpensive. But you need to do this consistently. 3 times a week minimum. Some folks think you should rest one day in between so you recoup ATP. Your muscles use that for energy. Find something you enjoy doing. Find a partner you can do this with. Cross-train. Make sure you have something to do in the winter. Your body will get used to the same exercise if you've done this, if you do this long enough. Now, there's one type of aerobic training that is better, and this research is about 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little longer. It's called high interval training. Now think about this. In nature, did we ever run for 45 minutes or 30 minutes straight? No. What did we do? We sprinted after something, and before something can prey on us, after we preyed on something, we sprinted after. So what that is called is high interval training, which means going as fast as you can, and the most intense is called Tabatas, and you want to do this first. If you have not been exercising, do this. If you have, and you've been doing aerobic training for a while, add in intervals. And do the research, read up on it. Tabatas is a Japanese doctor who found 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off, 15 seconds on. Real easy. I'm a spinaholic. Don't worry, it doesn't involve alcohol. I do spin classes about 4 or 5 times a week. And if they're not doing an interval training, I'll do my workshop within their, or my workout within their workout. You know, they'll do endurance or strengthening, but I'll go 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. I sit right up in front, and I see the clock there, and I just do my own intervals. And this is the reason. What they found with interval training, when you do this kind of workout, you may burn 200, 300 calories, and you're done. With interval, you have something called afterburn. You burn another 200 or 300 calories throughout the day. And this is why if you're looking at exercise as a way to lose weight, it doesn't work. Because you just expend calories, and then you want to put those same calories back in. The only way to really lose weight is to change your diet and do interval training. And again, bicycling, hiking, the treadmill you could do it. The elliptical machine is much less demand and weight bearing and stress on your joints. But once you start to do this, you will have more energy, you will need less sleep, and there are so many health benefits. I've researched the health benefits of exercise, and it's something I cancel other things to make sure I get my exercise in, besides my adjustment, because I did that today. The mind-body connection. What goes on in here cannot separate itself from your body. Your thoughts become things. I don't know if you've read of Dr. Dassi's work, The Power of Prayer. You could pray for somebody in California, and guess what happens to their white blood cells? They go up. In fact, they did a study in Harvard. They took 50 people who said, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy, 50 times. Guess what their white blood cells do? They go up. Your words and your thoughts create hormonal changes in your body, especially if you say them with emotion. So you have to be very careful with watching the late night news before you go to bed at night, or reading the front of the daily news when you wake up. And you have to be very careful of not allowing people to say stuff about you that is not true. Because we buy into people's beliefs about us because we give them credence. So whenever somebody says something to me that's I know is not true, I say cancel, cancel. I don't say it to them, I just say it in my head. I say, if it's negative, it's not even about me, it's just about negativity I don't agree with, I say cancel, cancel. And the best thing is to hang what I call your do not disturb sign, like you're in a hotel, on the front of your mind. Which means, you know how they put that do not disturb sign in a hotel? Like, we're not here, we're not home, we're not disturbing you. Or I'm not allowing myself to be disturbed. Because this is a crucial thing. Stress is going to affect us, and it comes in 3 forms. They are physical, emotional, and chemical. But realize it's not the stress. Why can you take 2 stresses or 2 people, put them in a stressful event, one will come away beaten and one will come away stronger? It's not the stress, it's how we interpret those events. It's how we interpret it, and it's how it affects our physiology. Now, how does it affect your physiology? Well, it changes your posture and your breathing. So let me ask you something, folks. When you're stressed, do you like this?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. How are we when we're stressed? Are we smiling? No. How are we? We're like this, right? And then how do we breathe? What does that do to our cells? It cuts off oxygen and water. And it also produces a lot of other hormones, cortisol, that are horrible for us. So I have a challenge for us. Everybody think of one stressful thought. Everybody has one, not too many stressful thoughts. You can't handle that. Now, if your legs are crossed, uncross them. If they weren't crossed, cross them at the ankles. Sit to the back of your chair as possible. Put your shoulders back. Breathe deep. Most of us, when we breathe opposite, especially as crazy New Yorkers. When we breathe in, our diaphragm should come down, our belly should come out, hopefully not over our belt line. And when we breathe out, we should so practice that. Breathe out and suck it in. Go. Now breathe in. Smile. Some of us, I swear, if we smile, our face would break. Takes 32 muscles to frown, about 6 or 7 to smile. Much easier to smile. Now think of that same negative thought. Some of you look a little silly, but beyond that, does it have the same effect? And this might sound Pollyannish and trite, but I guarantee you, when you're stressed, and if you stay like this is the only way you could take something you can't see, can't measure, can't identify, called stress, and manifest the physical problem in your body. It has to change your physiology for a prolonged state. And this is why your forward head carriage, when we go over in our basic workshop, the most common faulty posture, structure that's wrong is this. And this is what they found. This simple posture causes aberrant nerve flow to the brain and causes your brain to be mapped improperly. So your posture, and you age quicker. So watch your physiology. Catch yourself when you're in a stressful, and realize, breathe deep, put your shoulders back, and maintain that. Now, we're going to move on to the fourth concept. Oh, my wet wipe is no longer wet, so I don't know how long it's going to erase. I went a little longer than I thought I would, which is usually the case. So, we're going to talk about my 3 kids. Don't worry, I don't have any family photos, no vacation shots. But when my son comes home and he says, Dad, they didn't take me on the basketball team. My life stinks. Vanessa's not going to the dance. You're not giving me the keys to the car. You're never getting the keys to the car. Generally, my life is a horror. I look at him and I said, Stephen, your life is perfect. It happened about 270 to 280 days before you were born. You will never have to worry about another thing as long as you live. Well, he looks at me with the same blank stare most of you are looking at me with, and I'd say, Stevie, you know what happened 270 to 280 days before you were born? This one thing was swimming upstream. And this other thing was planted upstream. We'll call her Miss E. And there was a few trillion of these other things with a T, trillion, swimming upstream. Now, if you guys don't get this shit, you're in trouble. But these 2 half cells created 1 cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, 16, and up until 3 weeks of life, the first 2 organs form in the human body. What do you think? And by the way, this is your next page, so we might as well page ahead on that. The first 2 organs to form in the human fetus, what are they?
Brain and the spinal.
The brain and the spinal cord. Josephine, you made the basic workshop. No, you're also a very smart person. The brain and the spinal cord are what's called the primitive streak. And the purpose of your brain and spinal cord, right from the beginning, is, and this is according to Gray's Anatomy, is to control the function of every tissue, cell, and organ of your body. So folks, here is my son. By the way, I will never forget the birth of our 3 kids, especially my son. We had 3 born with a midwife, my son being born at home. Our families were really supportive, yeah, right. And I'll never forget, well, I'll get to that in a second. But from 3 weeks of life, there's a differentiation of cells, and then comes your heart, prompted by the communication from the brain, because there's this electrical activity at 3 weeks of life, every single cell identical, can't explain why, but then there's 2 flopping balls, your kidneys, 2 limb buds, your legs, 2 limb buds, your arms, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 ears. God should have told me that ratio. 1 mouth, 2 ears. And out you come looking like a ladybug. No. So here we are. It's the midwife, my brother, and my wife. And my brother's running his business, like as we're giving birth. And he's the coach. And I said, Rick, can you turn down the ringer on the phone? And he turns it off. So now you have both families calling up, getting no answer, thinking we're all dead. So they're all rushing in, and it seems, no exaggeration, within 4 seconds that I'm pushing them out the door, I'm back in, holding my wife's leg up, and I see this black ridge. And I'm saying, oh my God, what did we do? His head is deformed, till I realize his hair is perfectly parted down the center. He sticks his head up like Yoda, says, this is a nice place, I think I'll come a little further. 1 hand comes out, 5 fingernails, they look like they've been filed, he'd been to the beauty salon, 5 on this side. Then he plumps out, we let the cord stop, we check his spine, his nerve system, we put him on the breast, and I say, now what to the midwife? You're leaving. We kicked out my brother, and as god-awful as this sounds, it's the honest truth. He's born at 9:14 on a Sunday, and I have office hours here in Whitestone, 9 o'clock the next day. He's born on a Sunday. On a Monday, I'm in the office at 9 a.m. And she says, this is what you do. Have him sleep between you. And I'm thinking, I'm going to crush the kid. But she says, that's the best way to do it. And this is the memory I will never, ever forget the rest of my life. I remember looking to my right and seeing 2:12 on the clock. And I looked to my left, and there was my son, wide awake, staring right back at me. And my thought was, what a miracle that created him. what an energy that took these two half cells, needed no help, needed no interference, because out came this perfectly functioning human being that needs no doctors, nothing, and it knows how to heal itself the rest of its life. And it's the same intelligence that created him that heals him. So when he's 13 and he goes on this student exchange, which was a great thing, the ambassador program, he goes to New Zealand or Australia for a month, eats a terrible rich diet, high in salty foods. Well, there's an inborn innate wisdom. It started right here at 3 weeks of life that directs his cells to retain what? To deal with the salt. What does it retain?
Water.
Water. And what retains the water? His kidneys. What tells his kidneys? Well, you may not be able to read that because it's kind of small, and it's pelvic nerve, but it's green, which is part of your parasympathetic system of your autonomic, and then you have your sympathetic. This thing slows it down. Your sympathetics, his cardiopulmonary nerve, off his upper back, speed it up. And then his vagus nerve and the pelvic nerve, well, this retains the water, but now his heart's got to beat faster, right? So now he's got off the other end his vagus nerve to slow it down, or his cardiopulmonary nerve to speed it up. And then his adrenal glands have to kick in some adrenaline. So here he is, he's got this orchestra going on in his body. His heart's beating faster. He comes home, he may feel fatigued, tired. We take him to the doctor, who checks his blood pressure and says, you have what? High blood pressure. And you need to do what? Take a drug. And not that I would tell my son differently, but he's been raised to think differently, because if he gives himself 2 weeks, 2 months, what do you think he'll do with that extra water? He'll get rid of it. So, I cut myself the other day. I didn't really have to think too much about it. Scar went down. It got a little red. I cleaned it. Scab came off exactly when it was supposed to. Didn't really have to think much about it. And in his body, his brain is telling his kidneys. At the same time, it's got his heart. He's got his adrenal glands. But let me ask you this. What happens if his kidneys are retaining the water, but he doesn't get the message from the brain to the heart to beat faster? He doesn't get the adrenaline. Well, let me ask it this way. What's the most common cause of nerve interference in the human body? And this is where I could commit suicide by jumping out the basement, but it's kind of hard because we got no windows down here. If we had a headache in the evening, we'd take Excedrin, what, PM? We're all old enough, we have Tylenol for juniors, how to spell relief, RLF. We all know that. We're all trained on that. But we don't know, and we're not given any inkling at all of what interferes with the intelligence that runs our body. And when I heard this, it was so simple. It made so much logical sense that I delved in something that wasn't a profession. It was a calling. It was a lifestyle. It was the understanding that when you have, and this is on the bottom of your chart there, the most common cause of nerve interference is vertebral subluxation. Sub meaning less than a complete dislocation. S-U-B-L-U-X-A-T-I-O-N. Subluxation. And my terrible graphic, this is the red light to your nervous system. The red light is this. Say my son is going down the flume, or whatever they ride in New Zealand or Australia, and his body gets thrown, and the vertebra gets misaligned. Less than a complete dislocation. And maybe then he goes home and he relaxes, he stretches, it comes back. But now Vanessa calls emotional stress. She's not going to the dance. Boom, the muscles pull it back out of position. Then he eats more of that terrible chemically soured food, and his nerves recognize chemicals in your system, which we're going to talk about the causes of subluxation. And the vertebra gets twisted and compresses a nerve. Now, does he feel that? No. 15 to 20% of the fibers in any one of these nerves relay pain. Most of the nerve, 80 to 85%, is your autonomic nerve system. It runs your body autonomously. Now, I want to take this one step further. Remember we said sympathetic, parasympathetic. Your sympathetics in this yellow is all the middle of the spine. We are all in sympathetic overload. The sympathetic, if you look back embryologically, developed, or evolutionarily, developed first because we were in fight or flight, because we were on survival. We're in sympathetic overload because of our lifestyle now. Parasympathetics balance your sympathetics. They keep things in check. They slow the system down. They let it recoup. Guess what every technique in chiropractic focuses on? Every single one, and I've studied just about every one. The top and the bottom. Now we adjust every other things in between, but some techniques only adjust your neck. I came from Stamford, Connecticut to get my neck adjusted. I can only get adjusted one way because of an injury I had where I was almost paralyzed, but that's a story for another day. And thank God for chiropractic, because I'm alive, but
It was
because
an
my
auto
parasympathetic
accident.
baseball injury,
Oh.
my parasympathetic calmed my system down. And I don't necessarily get pain, but my thought process, because what happens, we said, your nerve system is the hub of the wheel. Your exercise is dependent on how well you digest your food. To a great degree, your vagus nerve, your parasympathetics. How you exercise, what affects blood flow is the middle lining of muscle, contracts and expands from nerve supply and muscle balance. But when you're subluxated, you get congested. So you get paralysis of energy here, but you get congestion of energy in brain mapping. And this is why they're finding, which is amazing, when you have irritation to your parasympathetics, it ages your system and it causes so many different, well, let me put it this way. When you don't have it, you digest better, you sleep better, you have more energy, you sleep better, you digest better, you have more energy, and you breathe better, which gets oxygen to all of the cells. So, having your spine free of interference is crucial, and this is why we covered the causes of subluxation: physical, emotional, and chemical. And the workshops, and by the way, you have that about 2 pages later. It's after the picture of subluxation. This is why keeping your spine free of interference, and we also listed areas, 10 of them, areas where you may have subluxated your spine. And the reason we're having you list them at some point, you don't have to do that now necessarily, is so you don't reintroduce the same patterns. And this is what the workshops are about. They're about teaching us what can we do to stop the physical, emotional, and chemical stresses in our body, and not undo what we're trying to do in here. So, we're almost at the home stretch. What's the most common physical stress we're all subject to? Anybody know? All subject to this one. We just talked about it with my son. How about this, birthing? What position is mom in when she gives birth? Anybody know? Oops, don't worry, that wasn't my remote. You can leave that one, John. Thank you. I won't step on it. On her back, with the angle of the uterus pointing 20 to 30 degrees, which way? Up. With the baby in the placenta lying on the major blood supply. So now, instead of the baby being in gravity, my 3 kids were born in a birthing chair, squatting and kneeling. We take a normal process, we rotate the head 180 degrees, and then we use 60 to 90 pounds of pressure, and rotate 90%, by the way. This is 90% of natural, healthy childbirths. We rotate the head 180 degrees the opposite way, and this is made into a medical procedure, and they still use these things today. They're called forceps. I've seen them. They're big and colossal, resulting in severe subluxations. And how does a baby come out, by the way? Hi, let's have a party. Well, that's a cone head. That's from a C-section.
No.
Oh yeah, this is a C-section. Some hospitals have a 40% C-section rate. Why? Doctor's got to get to the golf course. No exaggeration. And because of this, they train women that birthing is not a natural process, and that you cannot control your birth, and that you're not in control. This is how healthcare, and it's changing because people are reading on the internet, becoming more consumer savvy. But used to be, we didn't question the doctors. So you have to have a birth plan, and if anyone here knows somebody who's getting pregnant, gonna get pregnant, have them come in and coach with us, because you have to have a birth plan, or they will have a plan that will not result in a good outcome. So, when you go through the birth canal, your head is molded. It gets all the mucus out of your nasal passageways. Now they put a bulb, causes chemical subluxation. And look at this fellow still has his ring. Not the best way to begin life. So let me tell you folks, I have the very dear privilege of taking care of a lot of children. And you may have seen some of them in here. Some of them with ear infections and allergies and asthma. Some of them just to be well. I've had 2 in the last 2 months who had torticollis, meaning their head was like this, from severe birth trauma. This is what they're going to do. They're wearing helmets so the head doesn't shape abnormally. They're getting physical therapy to do this, which isn't doing anything. And next they're going to snip the nerve.
Why?
That's what they're going to do. They're going to snip the nerve, like the nerve doesn't have a purpose.
No,
So
no.
let me tell you, the first one of these babies, we did our exam, we did our computer study, we found a misalignment first bone, we adjusted. The next day I speak with the mother who puts the husband on the line because he's concerned now the baby's on the other side. Why? Because the first time ever it could stretch. And 2 adjustments later, it's got free motion. I've had babies with colic. I had one baby who for 22 days wasn't gaining weight, wasn't sleeping through the night. Mom and Dad were ready to give it a sulfa drug which would have destroyed its intestines. The medical solution was more formula, like God put these milk jugs by accident, and it was not thriving. Christopher, we did our exam. He was a C-section baby. We hung him by his ankles, normal procedure to check the stability of his neck, and his head and his head, by the way, was always like this. In the same position, it was like this. Normally, we check a child the second day to see if it's in the same pattern. I said, let's check Chris, because you're not sleeping. You're about ready to give the drug. He's sleeping 4 or 5. He'll only go on the breast for 3 or 4 minutes. Maximum, 3 or 4 minutes. He gets frustrated because his digestive system is shut down. From birth, 22 days of age, not eating. We do a light adjustment. I say he carries on for half a second. He starts. I said, do me a favor. He looks hungry. Put him on the breast. I come back 5 minutes later. He's feeding. I come back 10 minutes later. I come back 20 minutes later. Finally, he stops feeding. They put him up to be burped without having to be jostled up and down for the first time. Slept through the night. Why? Our brain runs our body. The energy has to get through your spine. Sometimes the physical stress happens in a crib. Sometimes it happens from sitting at a desk all day. Sometimes it happens from the birthing process itself. And if that's the case, the sooner it's corrected, the more close we have to live to 120 to 130 years of age. And this is why I encourage you. Chiropractic has nothing to do with symptoms. That's what gets everybody here. But the only reason they stay is because I am not a fool. They feel better. But the only reason they feel better is because their body is functioning better. Think about it. We don't put anything in. We don't take anything out. We just get what's there that created it to heal and keep your body working as best as it can. And optimum health is different for everybody. Some people, optimum health is they don't eat right, they don't digest right, and they're never going to be 100% well. But at least they have their best energy, allowing their body to heal and do what it can do with the food and the exercise you give it. So, a couple of things, folks. I have these presentation questionnaires. If you've been to the basic workshop, you guys don't need to fill one out. I'm going to ask if you have the few moments, do it now. Rate our information, the computer slide, our presentation. We've had some great comments, 1 being not so good, 5 the best. If you have a place you'd like us to lecture, we do ergonomic evaluations, whether it's a church, a mother's group, seniors group, whatever it is, fill that out. If you'd like somebody to attend the workshop, we'll invite them. Just call them and let them know. If you haven't had your spines checked, schedule a time here. Fill in your information. Rita had to leave. She had an emergency, but she'll get to you and give a shout. If the person's not in this room and they're a child, I will call the spouse, if you have a spouse that's not here, I will come cook you breakfast if I have to make sure your children get checked. As I said, I have 3 who've never had an antibiotic, never had an ear infection, who are as healthy as they could possibly be. So I'm going to hand one of those to you, John. Thank you, Andrea. And Josephine, you got one before. Kayla, do I have it right?
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm better than I thought. You did, okay, thank you, and I got another one that's on the floor that I think I knocked over. And thank you for being part of our advanced first one on tape, and hopefully
Oh, is it?
we have some cutting. Oh, you did, Robert,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. And God bless, folks, thank you for being here.
Thank you.